Hello and welcome to episode 3 of the 2024 season for the Widnes Rugby Chat podcast. With myself, James Gordon, I'm joined by Mike Parsons, and in this episode, we'll be going through the most recent game for Widnes, a defeat away at Sheffield. There's an interview with Ollie Brookes, and then we'll talk about some of the transfer rumours and players that are being linked to the Vikings for 2025. So, Mike, going back to that Sheffield game, and we had a bit of a chat about it on the show last week, and it was always going to be a tough game for Widnes, and in the end, they went down 30 points to 21. The first time they've lost back-to-back games all season. But actually now, slightly worrying, it means Widnes have only won one of the last 5 games. So, and maybe a little bit of a wobble, but what was your thoughts on the game?
Yeah, it was a bit of a frustrating afternoon after starting so well. I mean, you get to half time. What was it? Was it 15-6 at that point? Was it half
6,
time?
yeah.
And you're thinking we're in control here. Again, like not for the first time this season. I think I mentioned last week, Kirk and Murray was absolutely, fantastic. Was really dominant. Set the stall out. I thought Lewis Brogan was really good as well. He made a couple of handling errors, but I think there was a clear tactic there of Sheffield really tried to push up and get in his face, and he spilled the ball a couple of times, but you could see that Super League quality in him, his footwork. He seemed to step faster when he was taking the ball in, maybe compared to some of the other forwards on the pitch. And yeah, it was all really going well. I think as the game went on, I think we quickly seen Sheffield really ramped it up and went up a gear or two at least with their interchange bench. I thought, Guaze, Connor Bauer, and Joel Farrell. I think they really roughed us up down the middle and started to make yards. And in that second half, we was really struggling to get out our own end, and you're kicking the ball, and Ben Jones Bishop, Matty Dawson Jones, they're returning it up to the halfway line, and you're sinking further back, and you mix that up with the poor discipline in the second half. I know a lot of people commented about the referee, and to be honest, I'm not one for blaming referees. I think we can only have ourselves to blame. I think it was Marcus Griffiths. I don't think he had the best of games. I think even in that first half, I think just shortly before we got the drop goal right on half time, I think Jordan Johnson, for me, I don't know about you, James, but for me it was a clear knock-on / incorrect play of the ball, and we got a penalty for pushing down. So it went both ways. A really frustrating afternoon, really, and I think you could see it full time. They frustrated us, and we couldn't quite kick back. And for the first time, probably this season, we've not finished the stronger team.
You mentioned Kirk and Murray there. I was embroiled in all sorts of technical strife for the first probably 20 minutes of the match. I probably didn't watch it as closely as I would have liked. But I wondered whether Sheffield had maybe done a bit of homework on Widnes and realised that Kirk and Murray tend to play a decent-sized stint at the start of the match. And I think they took advantage in the second half when Kirk and Murray obviously weren't on the field. And I thought Mitch Clark really took control of the game in the middle, really. And I just wondered whether Sheffield had maybe identified that maybe they soak Widnes up for half an hour, and then while Kirk and Murray are off the field, that's when they strike. That was maybe the impression that I got that they were doing. And then by the time Murray and Kirk came back on, I mean, I think it looked maybe like Kirk had a little bit of a knock because he didn't seem to come on. He didn't play loads of minutes in the second half. By the time they came back on, you felt it was Widnes were already chasing the game. You mentioned about the discipline. The sin bin. Well, there was a debate. Obviously, Sheffield had a sin bin as well. And I know speaking to Alan Coleman afterwards, he was a bit disappointed it wasn't a red card, the Sheffield sin bin, because it was a hip drop from Farrell. I think it was Farrell. Oh, no, it was Alex Foster, sorry. It was a hip drop tackle. He'll probably get banned for that. And Alan Coleman's position rightly was we don't benefit from him being banned. Somebody else is going to benefit from it. But the Widnes ones, I thought Roberts was a little hard done to. But the Fleming one was disappointing. Go on.
Yeah, like the Roberts one, I was right near the bench when he come off, and I believe the signal from the actual referee on the field, from what I could see and hear, was actually it was repeat offending.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
That'd be
That was
quite,
it. Yeah.
you know,
Yeah, and so
disappointing.
it's not.
Yeah,
It wasn't his fault necessarily. He was just at the end of a. He was at the end of the call, and you could maybe argue that for the second week running, and whether it coincides with Kirk and Murray going off, Widnes ended the first half on the back foot, really. And
I
even
think
though they were, yeah, and even though they were in the lead at that point, I had no problems with the drop goal. Thought it was a wise decision, and then they got the penalty at the start of the second half, and that was a no-brainer as well to kick that goal, because at least it would have forced Sheffield to kick both the conversions. The key incident of the game, and I did have a message on Twitter about this, was it was just before the hour mark. Widnes were winning 17-12, and a kick went up to the air. Ollie Brookes, who we'll hear from very shortly, went up for contested the ball with a fullback. I must admit, I wouldn't be able to call it either way. My view was impaired. I was probably I was right in the corner, so maybe the posts were in my way. So I have no idea what actually happened with the ball in the air. But the referee originally gave Widnes the scrum, and then for whatever reason changed his mind, and it was off that set that they then got on the roll forward. Fleming got his sin bin. I think Mitch Clark got a second penalty when he appeared to lose the ball at the play of the ball, but they got another penalty. Then they scored off that, and it was Glover, of course, Fleming's opposite number, who managed to get through a gap. I think
typical,
partly
isn't it?
frustrating. Yeah, partly frustrating for me was that he didn't only just get over; they let him get round to underneath the post, which made the goal easier. That was a key moment of the match, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. It was. You could see the body language. It was a hammer blow. You could see people, walking back in the under the post. Obviously the interrogation of what went wrong. But you're absolutely right. I think. Look, he may have still got the goal, but for me in my mind, I think Alan will be really disappointed with that, because there wasn't too much pressure on him actually coming round to the post. So yeah.
But but
You know,
but of course,
I
having
would,
said that, Widnes did retake the lead, and it was sort of against the run of play. They were down to 12 men. I don't think Gilmore was planning to set up a try with a kick. I think he was just grubbering a kick to touch, and I thought Brooks and Roberts played well, and they chased the ball, and it set up nicely for them. They managed to get the try back in front, and you thought, oh, maybe. But other than that, Widnes didn't really look too much of a threat in the second half. Sheffield really just got on top of them, and I think probably the last try, which effectively put the game beyond Widnes' reach, probably summed up Widnes' second half, where they put a kick up, the fullback caught it, managed to evade a couple of tackles, ran 70 metres, and then quick played the ball, and they basically just snuck round the blind side, and no one followed well and over. And I think it was just a bit of a lacklustre second half for Widnes. But at the end of the day, I think Sheffield second in the league for a reason. They're a very good team at home. Widnes' record against Sheffield is shocking, to be honest, since they've been relegated from Super League. Um, and it's one of them. I think you probably, if you were being honest, if you looked at the fixtures, you probably wouldn't put Sheffield away down as one that you'd think you'd get anything out of. Like I said, I think
no,
they're just worrying. I mentioned it on at the start there. The worrying thing at the moment is Widnes just won 1 out of 5, and it perhaps highlights just how critical that win at York was, because without that late win there, they would effectively now be in 5 games without a win. And
absolutely.
I don't think Widnes' form is as bad as that sounds.
No, it's not.
Ultimately, they were unlucky against Wakefield. They competed against Toulouse. They drew one of them 5 games, which could have won. But I'm sure Alan Coleman's looking at it thinking, right, we've got 3 what you would call winnable games, with all due respect to the teams that they're playing next, Batley, Swinton and Dewsbury. They've probably got to a point now where they've got to win all 3 of them games, I think, to make sure that they don't they're still in a good place, and I think if Widnes are they're in control of their own destiny, as I suppose everybody is at this point. But what you want to try and do is you want to get yourself with a bit of a cushion in the six, so you're not dragged down into that scrap. I mean, there's 5 teams are separated by 2 points. If you make it 4 points, then pretty much every other team is in there competing for that final playoff space. So Widnes just needs to try and keep that buffer up.
And I think as well, fortunately, I think, the Batley in this winter game, like you said, the pivotal, and, not underestimating everybody. They're certainly not one of them sides competing and up there at the minute. And we've just come back off a block of fixtures, really, where the sides who you expect, well, certainly at the moment, are in and around us. I think Featherstone have got Toulouse this weekend, for example. So a couple of them sides have got to, play each other and be taking points off each other. And, we need to do our job, essentially. Everybody calm down. We did get that result at York, which I think we mentioned when we beat them. That could have been the point where we was asking ourselves, is this where we hit the iceberg like we usually do? Fortunately, we got through that fixture. And I think, like you said, James, in the games that we've dropped points and lost, yeah, there's been disappointing moments, but there's been plenty of positives. And that first half, certainly the first half an hour against Sheffield, there was plenty of positives. It was just probably the first time this season where the game probably just got away from us a little bit.
Yeah, but having said that, look, it was the worst defeat of the season, and it's only by 9 points, which is perhaps a testament to, to how things have been going. And I think you've got to, Widnes being competitive in every game is going to stand them in good stead further down the track. They've got a bit of a cushion in the playoff places now. The fact of the matter is all of them teams beneath them are going to be taking points off each other for the rest of the season. So if Widnes can keep that little bit of a cushion ahead, and I think if they can, I almost think if they win the next 3 games, they'll be in the box seat for a playoff place, because I think none of the teams in that chasing pack will win 3 out of 3. So they've already got quite a cushion on, the 5 points clear of 7th at the moment. So even if teams win 2 out of 3, if Widnes win 3 out of 3, they're probably going to have a 7-point cushion on the playoffs with 10 or 11 games to go, which I think's a massive advantage to have, especially when you consider the games that Widnes have got left. Anyway, we'll wrap up on the Sheffield game. My BBC colleague John Lawless spoke to Ollie Brookes after the match. Here is what he had to say.
Ollie Brookes, a sterling effort by the lads this afternoon, and we're on top at half-time. I just thought Sheffield outmuscled you slightly maybe in the second half.
Yeah, you're right. We came out we started really well, and then second half we had a good team talk, thought we were on it, but we were down a man. So that 6 minutes really killed us. And it's a hot day, and it's Sheffield's pitch, and I think they did bring it to us, but we stuck in there, got a try back, and it was close all the way to the end. And that's what we are this season. We fight every last breath and for every blade of grass, and you can see that in the team's performance today.
You had a decent lead at half-time, and then Tom Gilmore kicked a 30-metre penalty to put you a bit further ahead. At that point, you probably thought, we're in business here.
Well, the penalty was the obvious decision. It's like I said, we were a man down, so got to take that and then buy the time for the man to come back on. And so we felt quite strong. And like I say, we fight for every blade of grass, whether we're behind or in front. We're always fighting as hard as we can.
So you spent a quarter of the game today down to 12 men. Both your centres got sin-binned. It did one in the first half, Max Roberts, and then Matty Fleming in the second half. Very similar incidents. Were they a bit harsh, those sin binnings, in your view?
The refs said for Max's, I heard it, and he said we'd done it a few times, and he just got the last hit before it was time for someone to go. And I think that's across the board, not just blame on them lads, but all as a team, we need to sort of watch that and be better on that, and that's something we can work on.
Widnes have got real strength in depth in the wingers, I have to say. You haven't played for a little while here today, but you look like you enjoy yourself out there, and you've laid on 2 good tries.
Well, I've been pecking at Al's here all the time. If I'm not having a game here, I want to go somewhere. I've been at Rochdale a bit, and I thought I did quite well there, and Al's spotted that and thought I deserve a chance, and hopefully I've taken it, and got Batley next week, and I can't wait to get back out there, so I'm sure we'll give a good performance there as well.
You were living on crumbs really in the second half, weren't you? And I have to say, it came against the run of play, the try that you set up for Max Roberts to go over for his second score of the day. But you got your reward there for not giving up on that. I think Gilly might have been trying to kick it off the field, but as it turned out, it went into your path.
Brooksy, lucky me. He went. I think he did go for touch, but like I say, I'm fighting for everything. And if he gets to the ball and he keeps it in, I've got to be there to tackle him out. Or like I say, I can get the bounce of the ball and I can offload it to Max. But it's a great kick by Gilly, and if you watch it, Max is absolutely shouting for it. So if he's not doing that, he's not getting the ball. And I got a hit off the ball as well, which is nice one for it.
I've been here a number of times in recent years to this particular ground, and I have to say it's not been much of a happy hunting ground for Widnes. But it goes to show, obviously, you'll be upset because you've lost today, but it just goes to show that wherever they go this season, Widnes, and whoever they're playing, they're in the fight in every game.
Well, it's my first time here, actually, to be honest. I made my debut against Sheffield at home in the middle, surprisingly, but first time I've played here on this pitch, and we're fighting at every single minute of the game to win the points, and that'll be wherever we play. But we've got Batley next week at home, and that's our fortress, so we'll take it there.
Yeah, you've played arguably two of the best teams, certainly the best team in Wakefield and one of the other best teams in Sheffield in consecutive weeks. You've suffered narrow defeats in both of those games, but I get the impression, just looking at the Widnes lads coming off the field at the end there, that spirit is not dampened. You're back at home next week. You've got what looks on paper like a winnable game against Batley. So all hands to the pump.
Yeah, not at all. We're not downhearted by this. We put on a good show and scored some good tries, like you say, and we're going to our fortress and we're going to make it a strong performance there and get the win.
So looking ahead now I suppose we'll look ahead to the rest of the season, but the next game is against Batley on Sunday. It's a 2:30 kickoff to enable everyone to get home in time for the England match. Well, or of course, I think you can watch it in the bar, can't you, somewhere? Other people will know more than I will. Want to talk? One of a bit of correspondence I have had, which we'll talk about before we go into this rumour mill season that we appear to be reaching, is I've had a message off Born Vikings on Twitter, which is worth a follow. I enjoy the videos that they share on that Twitter page. Asking about the stadium clock, which I think we mentioned a little bit after the Wakefield game, because there was clearly some confusion after the Widnes try. Widnes scored very late on, and you could see Alan Coleman was sort of frantically communicating with people in the stand to figure out how long was left. Now, there is a clock at Widnes on the scoreboard, and it's of great frustration to me that it's not accurate, because, of course, when you're commentating on radio, you want to be able to say how long's gone and how long's been. I've been asked, can I ask the question why it doesn't stop when the referee calls time off? Now, I haven't asked the question, but my understanding is that pretty much in the Championship, the clock isn't connected to the official timekeeper in any way. Now, why that can't be the case, I don't know. In Super League, clearly there's an official timing clock, and when they have the big screen, they can have it on. I would presume, because we've seen at York that it was live, I presume at York they must have had someone sat next to the timekeeper who was operating the scoreboard clock, because it was accurate at York. But Mike, does it make a difference, do you feel?
I'll be honest, from my point of view, it doesn't harm me from watching the game. For you, it's probably more beneficial, like you say, with the commentary. But for me, when you're in a nervy game and there's 10 minutes to go, I must admit, I do go on my phone and check Twitter and go on the Twitter feed, because I do find that that's more accurate to the actual time. I think if there is somebody listening, I suppose, and the club can do something about it, I think it'd be a thumbs up.
I suppose that, and I guess the question's being asked because it affected the players clearly in terms of they didn't plan the last play. But I suppose there's nothing stopping the players at any point asking the referee how long's left.
Well, no,
and I think that's I think that's the message that I would probably put on at that point is, realistically, if Widnes were unsure about the time there, all it would have taken was for one of the players to ask, and they would have found out. I think, but having said that, my personal opinion is that for the fans, the clock should be accurate. I think it's good that there is, it's good that there is a clock now. And yeah, it's never going to be completely accurate, I don't think. But I think in this day and age, with the advances in technology and stuff like that, it shouldn't be hard for someone somewhere to be able to sort that out. And it just takes a little bit of desire from somebody,
Yeah.
in the right place to make sure that happens.
Yeah, and I think as well, it just add to the professionalism of the event, wouldn't it? I suppose, you know what I mean. It would look a bit better, and like you say, for fans, certainly easier.
Yeah, and
Hopefully
that's what
they can get it sorted. Hopefully it can be something that's ironed out. 'Cause like you've said there, I'm hoping it's one of them things that it's quite a quick fix.
Yeah, and it might not. There might be limitations. I mean, let's be fair. At least Widnes is substantially better than what Sheffield have got. So we shouldn't be too critical or too harsh on that. But I'm always about trying to improve things as best as they can. And for me, if they can sort that out, then that would be great. Right.
Yeah.
So we're gonna have a bit of a section now dedicated to the rumour mill. So Widnes have been linked to a few players in the recent weeks, and generally, I think with maybe one or two exceptions, a lot of Widnes' signings in recent years have been leaked, for want of a better word, long before they were announced. So perhaps the talk here is there's no smoke without fire. So the three players that have been flagged up are Dec Patton, formerly of Warrington, was at Bradford, was at Swinton, but I think has now gone to Featherstone. Lee Gaskell, who came through the system at St Helens, has played for Bradford, Wakefield, and then Ryan Lannon, who's a forward, who played for Salford. What are your thoughts, Mike?
Interesting. I mean, starting off with Dec Patton, I think in traditional Widnes style, straight away, divided opinions over Dec. He's coming through at Warrington, wasn't he? As the next best thing, and it never quite worked out. Then he went to Salford. Am I right? And was he there for about a season? And you thought a fantastic move for him, and it's somewhere where he could maybe kick on his career like a lot have there, and it just never quite happened. And then moved to Bradford, and then at Bradford, for me, somebody who maybe needs a bit of confidence and stability in the world of rugby league. He goes there and it's not a halfback's haven, is it, on the Odsal pitch? You've got challenges every week, really. It's not a particular, place where you can expect to see expansive rugby. And then you pair that with all the ins and outs that they seem to have every year with dual registration, loans, permanent signings in and out. It's very hard to establish yourself. And then his move to Swinton seems to have rejuvenated him. Well, I went to watch him against York, and obviously seen him play against Widnes, and I think paired with Geordie Gibson, you could see him. He was playing with confidence again. Geordie, for me, when I've seen him, don't know an awful lot about him, but he seems to play that Tom Gilmore role quite well. And Dec was running off the back of that, and he's from what I've seen, he's certainly got a good long kicking game as well. Something maybe that I think you mentioned a couple of weeks ago, Danny Craven had that maybe. I think Tom's good kicking the ball near the line, but maybe further out, it'd be good to have another option. So I'm quite happy with Dec. I think it's important that Alan, I think Alan's a good man manager, and there's been a couple of rumours about him, not having the best of attitudes, and I think that just won't be accepted at Widnes. So if we sign him, I think I'm okay with that. What about you?
Yeah, I think Patton, for me, and as we say, we should say that they are just rumours at this point. I think Patton played for Widnes, didn't he, in 2020 under Tim Sheens, and probably didn't endear himself to the Widnes fans with his performances in them 2 games. Clearly, he had something. He's played plenty of games for Warrington. I think I'm slightly concerned that I'm slightly concerned that he's playing every week for Swinton and then has moved mid-season. That concerns me a little bit, because I think if you're gonna, for Swinton, that must be frustrating. I don't know the ins and outs of that deal, whether they've got a fee for him or whatnot. I presume maybe Alan Coleman had some influence in his signing for Swinton in the first place. I don't know how late that deal got done. Of course, Alan Coleman was there. You would imagine maybe if that deal might have got done, maybe even before Coleman had gone, Alan had signed up for Widnes. I don't know. I think for me, and I might be wrong, for me, of the two, Patton and Gaskell, I think Gaskell goes with Tom Gilmore a lot better. I think he the way he runs the game, the way he runs, and the versatility maybe Gaskell's got. I think he probably suits playing with Gilmore better than Patton. There's worries. You've probably got concerns over Gaskell's fitness. He's never really had massively long runs in the teams. I think the benefit of Gaskell signing, and maybe even if they sign both, the benefit of him is he can play with positions. He could play centre, and Widnes struggling at centre really at the moment. So it'd be interesting to see whether one or both of those come. I suppose it raises questions over Joe Lyons. I think Joe Lyons has been much better this season. I have to say, I think Alan Coleman went out and said, look, he's obviously being the backup player in previous seasons. Whether it was through necessity or choice, we don't know. He got the number 6 shirt this season, and he's played a lot better. I think he takes the ball to the line a lot more, but I still think he gets caught out a bit too often in possession. And frustratingly, I suppose for him is whether that's going to cost him a starting place next season. I think Joe Lyons defensively is a stronger option for Widnes at the moment, but it's almost getting to the point: does Lloyd Roby need to run in the team at halfback alongside Gilmore to see what he can do? Because I think the best halfback performance we've seen, other than Tom Gilmore this season, was Roby against Doncaster.
No, I completely agree. I mean, to be honest, touching on Roby a little bit, I've got absolutely no information over this. This is just my sole opinion, but I'm a bit concerned for Roby because he's played fantastically well whenever he's come in the team, whether it was at fullback, whether it was in the halves, or even when he come on for Tom Nisbet in the centres. If anything, he was on in that period where we scored them 2 tries right at the end. And here we are again, and he's not been selected for Sheffield. Now, for me, I'm looking at that, and I'm looking at the links to Patton, and I'm looking at the links to Gaskell. And I may be thinking, is there something potentially on the horizon where we could maybe see an early departure for Lloyd, because he's a fantastic player. He's played really well whenever he's put his hand up, and he's been put in the team. He's playing really well, and there just doesn't seem to be a place for him at the moment. And I think the age he is and the form he's showed when he's played, I can't see him wanting to play this role for much longer, really. So it'll be interesting to see. Interesting to see whether there could be a move away from the club there.
Yeah, Lloyd Roby he's only played 6 games this season. Most of them were at the very start of the season. He played 3 at fullback, and then that game against Doncaster. They were all. He's not actually started a match in the league. The York game and the Wakefield game are the only 2 league appearances he's made off the bench. So, yeah, I think the problem is Jack Owens is the fullback. I think the only way, do you give him a run at centre? But I think there's question marks perhaps over his defence. Do you play him at fullback and then put Jack Owens in at standoff? Maybe. I think that's the thing. But yeah, you'd have to say that if Widnes are being linked with other players, where does it leave Lloyd Roby? And I think it's unfortunate maybe for him. For me, I'd be disappointed if we get to the end of the season and he's not had a go at halfback with Tom Gilmore for a few weeks. I'd be disappointed if we get to that point. And that's no disrespect to Joe Lyons. I think
that's a totally fair comment.
So anyway, we'll see what happens with Det Patton and Lee Gaskell. The other name that you threw up, Mike, was Ryan Lannon, who...
Yeah.
Go on, tell us what you think about that one.
Again, I'll be honest, Ryan, I think, from the bits I've seen, he's a bit of a no-nonsense player. He's got plenty of aggression in him, and I think he'd really add to our pack. Can play back row and prop. I think, I look at maybe, Danny Langtree, obviously the shoulder went again, didn't it? And the age he is there potential where he has to look at, his future away from rugby, and that's maybe a signing to prepare for him maybe, hanging up the boots, or potentially to add to what we've got. I mean, if Danny can, sustain a number of games towards the end of the season and wants to keep going and keep playing, I'd be more than happy, because as we've seen already, he's plenty of enthusiasm and aggression, certainly when he's fully fit, and he's got ball skill as well. I think if you had players like Rodri Lloyd, Danny Langtree, Ryan Lannon, Sam Wilde, and then the pack like Murray, Kirk, and so on, etc., etc. I think it'd be a fantastic acquisition, to be honest, in my opinion.
Yeah, Lannon's been playing pretty much off the bench for Halifax this season, but he played more than 100 games for Salford. I think Halifax are having a few troubles, like shall we say, and Widnes very much benefited from that by picking up Dan Murray earlier in the year. So maybe it'll be another one that Widnes pick up in the off season with Lannon coming. I certainly think he'll add something to the pack. There's also the fact that Widnes got Martin Riley, who they signed last season, who's been injured all season. He'll almost be like a new signing as well. He'll add to the pack. So you might find that if Widnes can retain the most of this squad and just add a couple more, there might not be a massive amount of activity beyond them three that we mentioned. I think definitely there's a need for a centre. And whether I wonder whether maybe we might see maybe Kieran Dixon. Maybe he'll be a sacrifice, perhaps, given that there's three other strong wingers as well. Maybe it'll be Kieran Dixon who moves on, and there's a centre that comes in to fill his place in the squad. I think maybe that might be one on the horizon. Maybe, who knows? But I think Widnes in a decent position. I'm sure they'll probably be attractive to people at the moment because the form is decent. A lot's going to depend on what happens with the whole Super League shenanigans later this year with the IMG and stuff like that, because there might be players coming on the market that otherwise wouldn't if Toulouse go up, for instance. There's, there'll probably be more English players kicking around.
Absolutely.
So, we'll wait and see what happens with that. And just before we go, I look ahead to this weekend's game against Batley. Batley have already been to the DCBL Stadium this season. Picked up a win in a game, actually, that I thought Widnes were a bit unfortunate to lose. I thought it was one of them. Widnes controlled the game for probably 60 minutes and probably a bit unlike Widnes this season, to be honest. They just switched off a little bit at the end and Batley pipped it. And, of course, that denied Widnes the chance of a Super League tie in the next round.
Yeah, I think it was a bizarre old game. It's a good few months back now. So I think territory, and we was comfortable. We just didn't score anywhere near enough points, and the attack's been a real positive this year, and it's improved as we've gone along. I think it had some familiar patterns of the Swinton loss away in the 1895 Cup, in the sense of that first half we had plenty of field position. We just didn't score enough points, and in typical Batley style, they just hung on, and they had that little purple patch, didn't they, towards the end, where the forwards started to get on top and just ended up landing over the line. Yeah, it was funny, and that they're coming to town, and I don't think we're going to get anything off Batley that's going to shock us. They're going to try and complete high and go down the middle. I think the only difference to Batley this year that I've noticed, and it's with the help of their ex-coach at Castleford, is they're playing a lot more dual reds this year. They've got Luke Hooley that's played regular for them. Nixon Putt's had a few outings for them. Sammy Kabula. So they're going to have a little bit of stardust in there, but I think we've got to go into it with the attitude of, right, put these 5 games behind us now. We're not a million miles off. Reset, stay calm, go in with a clear game plan, move that traditional big pack of theirs that they've got, move them about. We've got a big pitch, tire them and find the gaps out wide, I think.
Yeah, Batley haven't, as you say, Batley haven't necessarily been as strong as in previous seasons. You know, they lost the coach Craig Lingard to Castleford, but before last week they lost to Toulouse last week. They had 1-3 on the spin. They beat Sheffield, they beat Bradford, and they beat Swinton. So certainly no mugs Batley, and it'll be a tough game for Widnes to kickstart this run of what you'd like to think are 3 winnable games for the Vikings. Thanks for joining us. We'll be back next week. In the meantime, please join the new Facebook group, Widnes Rugby League fans, if you search for that. We'll try and put the link on the bottom of the podcast as well, or follow Widnes Rugby on Twitter, and we'll start trying to post through that. If you got any ideas for the podcast, if you want to feature, if you want to ask any questions, then get me on Twitter at JDG Sport, or contact through the Widnes Rugby website. But Mike, thanks as always for joining me, and we'll see you next week.
See you later, guys.